Thomas Watson, the former CEO of IBM, once said, "Would you like me to give you a formula for success? It's quite simple, really. Double your rate of failure." You're thinking that failure is the enemy of success, but it isn't at all. You can be discouraged by failure, or you can learn from it. So go ahead and make mistakes. Make all that you can, because remember, that's where you will find success. There are two ways I can think to find success in the world. And the first one is to take risks. Watson was right when he said that success is often found from failure. Unless you plan to happen upon extreme luck by winning the lottery or something like that, you're going to have to go out into the world and make something of yourselves, right? Have a plan. Go to college, enhance your human capital, and go out into the world and make something of yourselves. The extent of human capital and how it is applied determines your success in life. And when you go out to the working world, I really hate to be depressing, most of us will fail, and we will fail miserably. But it is how you deal with that failure that will determine your success. The worst thing you can do is accept it. Do not accept it. The only thing you should be accepting is that failure is natural and that you're becoming better through that process. I'd like to share some stories about failure, and you can tell me if these people accepted their failure or if they learned from their mistakes to better themselves. Bill Gates. We all knew he dropped out of Harvard to start Microsoft, and the rest was history. But it really wasn't. What most people don't know about Gates is a company called Traffic-Data. It took raw data from roadway traffic to hand it to software engineers to design better applications. It was a complete failure, with no sales, and it was embarrassing for Gates. A few years later, he renamed the company Microsoft, and the rest was history. Colonel Sanders, the same chicken recipe we all know and adore today, denied 1,009 times by different restaurants before it was accepted. Walt Disney was fired by a newspaper editor because he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Oprah Winfrey fired from her first job as a television producer because she was unfit for TV. J.K. Rowling, just 5 years before the first Harry Potter novel was published, she was divorced, severely depressed, had published a series of novels with no sales, and she was on welfare. Michael Jordan, cut from his high school basketball team. Dr. Seuss, first book rejected by 27 different publishers. And my favorite, Steve Jobs, kicked out of the company he started after dropping out of college. He founded a company called Next, which failed. In the meantime, was hired at Pixar, brought Pixar to the company we know it as today. And 10 years later, Apple is failing and begging for him to come back. Of course he accepted, and the rest is history. Why am I telling you about these people that failed? The point is that failure is the seed of opportunity. You will get nowhere in life only doing what you feel comfortable doing, playing to the abilities you are familiar with. We're all human. We all have, more or less, the same potential as the next person. Go out into the world, take risks, make mistakes, get back up, and go forward carrying the knowledge of your endeavors. T.S. Eliot once said, "Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go." The second way I think you can find success is to never settle. When you go to college and graduate, which I surely hope all of us will graduate eventually, you'll go out into the job of your dreams, you'll have a beautiful family, so maybe some of us will pursue a professional degree. Great. All of this is great. But what you will find most among most business leaders at the top is their insatiable appetite for more. They start out as factory workers, and managers, and then managers and managers, and then maybe eventually CEOs. The CEOs are the people who find their destiny and they see it out to the end. The ones who will persist through any kind of opposition. They will push until they cannot possibly push anymore. This is not to be confused with greed. I think the willingness to never settle is you wanting to see your potential out to the end. I'd like to give you two short examples of people who I believe never settle. Jan Fields, who is the current president of McDonald's, oversees 14,000 restaurants and hundreds of thousands of employees. Where was she in 1978? A fry cook at the same restaurant where she now sits at the top. Can you imagine that? Literally working from the absolute ground floor of a company to becoming its most esteemed staff member. How did she get there? Because she never settled, and she had the desire to reach her true potential. Everyone knows I like Donald Trump, but most people don't know why. In the 60s, he entered into real estate with his father, and they were a big success. They made millions every year on various projects in Brooklyn. In 1971, he went against his father's wishes and moved to Manhattan. Why? Because he knew there would be limits to middle-income housing in Brooklyn, and he thought that real estate could be a worldwide enterprise, and not just a small practice in Brooklyn. To make a long story short, it obviously worked out for him, right? But what is inspirational to me is that he turned out what was obviously set up for him as a comfortable life, to fulfill a dream, to go out on a whim, to take risk and to fail, and to never settle. In conclusion, if I could offer you any advice, it's to take risk, to never settle. If you find yourself questioning if you were meant for more, if your potential outweighs your current circumstance, it probably does. One of my favorite quotes to live by is, shoot for the moon, even if you miss. First book rejected by 27 different publishers. And my favorite, Steve Jobs, kicked out of the company he started after dropping out of college. He founded a company called Next, which failed. In the meantime, was hired at Pixar, brought Pixar to the company we know it as today. And 10 years later, Apple is failing and begging for him to come back. Of course he accepted, and the rest is history. Why am I telling you about these people that failed? The point is that failure is the seed of opportunity. You will get nowhere in life only doing what you feel comfortable doing, playing to the abilities you are familiar with. We're all human. We all have, more or less, the same potential as the next person. Go out into the world, take risks, make mistakes, get back up, and go forward carrying the knowledge of your endeavors. T.S. Eliot once said, only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. The second way I think you can find success is to never settle. When you go to college and graduate, which I surely hope all of us will graduate eventually, you'll go out into the job of your dreams,